Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Take Your Shot podcast. On today's show, we discuss the NBA buyout market plus Kevin Durant's future in Phoenix. That's all coming up and more on today's episode of the Take Your Shot podcast. Welcome to the show. I hope everyone's had a great day, a great weekend, a great trade deadline reaction week, because the trade deadline was the best NBA trade deadline I've ever witnessed. It was absolutely crazy, starting from the Luka Doncic trade to the Jimmy Butler deal, De'Aaron Fox, DeAndre Hunter to the Cavs, and there's so much more. The trade deadline was crazy. We've had a week to recover. We've had a week to see the debuts of those players at the trade deadline, and now we get into the buyout market and the All-Star break, because it is the start of All-Star weekend in San Francisco with the Rising Stars game tonight. As I'm recording this on a Friday morning, you've got the three-point contest, skills challenge, slam dunk on All-Star Saturday night, and of course, the new version of the All-Star format on Sunday. So it should be an exciting weekend in the NBA as teams take a break and we reflect at what is more than the midway point, but the All-Star break's supposed to be the midway point, but we know it's more than the midway point, about 54 games in to the NBA regular season. But it's been a great season so far. The trade deadline just made it a million times better, and we move on to the playoff chase. So we're very excited about that, but we've got a lot to talk about today because there was a trade that was rescinded, and Mark Williams, that trade that we thought was going to be a game changer for the Los Angeles Lakers, got rescinded, and it was the Lakers rescinding the trade after having Mark Williams have a physical. The trade is rescinded. The Lakers found multiple issues with Mark Williams' overall health and decided that it was best if they rescinded the trade due to his physical. As a reminder, the Lakers in this trade got Mark Williams. The Hornets got Dalton Knecht, Cam Reddish, a first in 2031 and a pick swap in 2030. That all goes back to the Lakers. Dalton Knecht, Cam Reddish going back to the Lakers. Mark Williams staying in Charlotte. That's unfortunate for him because Charlotte is an absolute disaster right now. Okay, but the point is, this trade hurts for the Lakers because I really thought Mark Williams could be the answer. Because Mark Williams, healthy for the Charlotte Hornets, is averaging 17 and 10. Mark Williams, the third-year guy out of Duke, has been doing incredible things when he's on the basketball court. The problem is Mark Williams hasn't been on the basketball court, and he has many health issues, which is why this trade got rescinded in the first place. But number two, the Lakers needed this center. The Lakers needed a game changer like Mark Williams. When they traded for Luka Doncic, we know what works best with Luka Doncic running an offense, and that is a lob threat big man. We saw it in Dallas with Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford, which the Mavericks acquired. Gafford at the trade deadline, drafted Lively last offseason. Well, 2 off seasons ago. I mean, it felt like just 5 seconds ago the Mavericks made the finals and then they traded Luka Doncic. But despite the point, the Lakers needed a lob threat center. They didn't get it now. And instead, they ended up having to sign Alex Len. And this one's going to hurt the Lakers for a little bit. Obviously, there's probably going to be more big man in the trade market in the offseason. Maybe a Miles Turner, just throwing a guy out there. But the Lakers need a lob threat big. I don't know where they're going to get it, but they do need someone. And I love Jackson Hayes, don't get me wrong. I'm happy he's actually reviving his career right now with the Los Angeles Lakers, but he is not a starting center. He's a below average backup center, and the Lakers are having to start him, and that got exposed in their loss to the Utah Jazz last night or 2 nights ago. They lost Wednesday night to the Utah Jazz. They did beat Utah on Luka's debut at home, but then they had to go to Utah, even with Luka and LeBron in the lineup, losing to a Utah Jazz team that is way below expectations here, sitting at 14th in the West at 13-41. So the Lakers, when I watched that game, really got hurt on the lob. Larry Markin and Walker Kessler attacking the rim. So the Lakers have a void at center right now. And when you're going up against a team like the Denver Nuggets in the postseason that you've lost to for 2 consecutive years, if you don't have a big man to guard Jokic, you're screwed. I mean, the Lakers got swept and lost in 5 already to the Denver Nuggets. But imagine now that they don't have a big man. it's going to be really bad. And currently the Lakers, I mean, they're winning a lot of games. I mean, the Lakers have impressed me. I mean, you got to give a lot of credit to Coach JJ Redick, because this Lakers team we really thought hit their peak with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, a first-round exit. They were actually fourth in the West before that loss to the Utah Jazz a couple of games ago. Houston just jumped them. So the Lakers are sitting at fifth, half a game behind the Houston Rockets for fourth and for home court advantage in the first round, and are 2 games ahead of the Los Angeles Clippers. So the Lakers are sitting in good position, not in the play-in tournament as they were in previous years with Darvin Ham. So you got to give a lot of credit there to JJ Redick, but this Lakers team has a hole, and they have to find the hole soon. And it can't just be a center who's 35 years old and on LeBron's timeline. This center, whether it is Mark Williams, maybe they can trade for him again. Probably not. But if it's someone similar to Mark Williams, because what the Lakers need is a center that aligns with Luka Doncic's timeline. This Lakers team, since they traded for Luka Doncic, is not about LeBron James anymore. This is the first time in LeBron's career when any team had LeBron James on it. It was built around LeBron. LeBron. That was it. But now, since LeBron's 40, you trade for this generational franchise player who's only 25 and Luka Doncic. The Lakers are building around him, and you need to build around Luka Doncic, and you need to get someone that aligns with Luka Doncic's timeline, someone who can be the starting center for the next 10 years to go with Luka Doncic to win a championship and bring banner 18 to the Lakers to tie the Celtics. The Lakers are about winning championships. They're about maxing their window. The Lakers, now they have 1 first-round pick. They have pick swaps. They can go out and get someone in the trade market. Now, I heard they were trying to get Jalen Duren from the Pistons. The Pistons weren't budging. Obviously, Mark Williams is a center that they wanted, but he's probably not going there anymore. So the Lakers are going to have to find a center similar in age to Luka Doncic, maybe a year or two older, that can really fit that timeline and be a vertical lob threat. This can't be a stretch big because Luka is taking up the whole perimeter with his ball handling. This big man, he cannot stretch the floor. This big man needs to attack the basket, needs to give Doncic a good pick and roll player and someone who can be a vertical lob threat. So the Lakers are going to have to find that big man that pairs up with Luka Doncic. And instead of getting Mark Williams, the Lakers ended up signing Alex Len to be the backup center for Jackson Hayes. And I mean, Alex Len was the backup center for Sacramento before he ended up getting waived from there. We actually thought he was going to the Indiana Pacers. That was being reported, and I thought that would have been good for the Pacers considering their center issues behind Miles Turner, Thomas Bryant off the bench, who he's been okay for the Indiana Pacers after he got traded from the Heat in December, and then Alex Len would have been in there. But instead, he goes to the Lakers. It's a much better situation. You're guaranteed to be the backup center there, and I think LeBron, Luka Doncic can maximize him. I know he's not this game changer, but at least he's someone to help Jackson Hayes as a center for now. But obviously, Hayes and Alex Len, no offense to them, they're not going to be the full-time centers of that team. But the Lakers have to do something this offseason. But I like the direction the Lakers are going. They're building around Luka. They're building around head coach JJ Redick. This is not LeBron's team anymore. And it's okay that the Lakers may not win a championship this year. We already knew that. And I think Rob Pelinka finally realized, okay, this team's not a championship contender. How are we going to get to our next championship team? It's not through LeBron and it's not through Anthony Davis. But the Lakers somehow miraculously, thanks to Nico Harrison on this Valentine's Day as I'm recording it, gave them a Valentine's gift in Luka Doncic, someone who you could start over your franchise with and can build around for the next 10 to 15 years to create multiple championships, to create a dynasty around a generational talent in Luka Doncic. So the Lakers, Rob Pelinka finally realized that, so you've got to give the Lakers credit, both the coaching staff and what they're doing in the front office. And the Lakers, I mean, they can make the second round. I mean, if you have LeBron and Luka Doncic, you never know. You could make the finals. Probably not because the roster around them at this year is just not good. And I love Austin Reeves is not a third best player on a championship team. There's a lot of work to be done for the Lakers. Maybe giving up a guy like Dalton Knecht could be necessary to get that center, even though Dalton Knecht coming back to the Lakers. I mean, I don't even know how Dalton Knecht's reacting because, okay, you're getting traded to Charlotte. You're on the plane. You're traveling to Charlotte's first game. You're about to play. And then all of a sudden the trade's rescinded. You got to go back to a team that just traded you. So I don't know how you should feel if you're Dalton Knecht. And I can't even imagine putting myself in Knecht's shoes. I just think the whole situation's funny that he has to go back. But Dalton Knecht, again, he could be used as a trade asset. Obviously, Rui Hachimura still in the mix. And if the Lakers really wanted to go for it, Austin Reeves is still on the table for any team that wants him as well. And that's really all the Lakers' assets, those three guys, Reeves, Hachimura, Knecht, their first-round pick, and pick swaps. So the Lakers are going to have to figure out of those three, the pick swaps, what are we going to do to help Luka Doncic for the next 10 to 15 seasons? But I want to move on to the team that traded Luka Doncic, because I'm about to go on a rant here, because the Dallas Mavericks are struggling with injuries. In fact, when I watched their game last night, they were missing not nine. They had 9 guys playing, but they were missing 7 players. But yes, it was the second night of a back-to-back. But the point is, the Dallas Mavericks have injury problems. And the fact that you traded Luka Doncic, who, again, generational player, for Anthony Davis. And Anthony Davis, I love him, don't get me wrong. He's an NBA champion. He's a proven elite big man in this NBA league. But Anthony Davis is one of the least durable players. And you traded someone who's not, quote unquote, not conditioned and not durable for a durable player. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Anthony Davis had a great first game against the Houston Rockets. In fact, I was quite impressed. And I'm like, okay, maybe this won't be as bad as we thought for the Dallas Mavericks. But then all of a sudden, Anthony Davis turns into Anthony Davis and he gets injured. You know what else happens? Daniel Gafford gets injured. Derek Lively continues to be injured. The Mavericks don't have any centers right now. The Mavericks' top 3 centers, actually even Dwight Powell, their top 4 centers are injured. How do you expect to win if you're the Dallas Mavericks? I know they've won 4 out of 5 games, but to win and coming out of the All-Star break with all those guys expected to be injured for multiple weeks and for a long time, that's a struggle. So the Mavericks, I mean, it's been a painful week for those fans there in Dallas because the protests, the injuries, when you actually felt like, okay, this might not be as bad as we thought. And now we find out after a few days of hearing about all the injuries to the big man that these injuries are long-term injuries. So the Mavericks are going to have to figure out something. They're going to have to get a big man in the buyout market to at least come in for a little bit and really, just come in there, get 10 points per game, maybe even less, get 6 to 8 rebounds a game, just come in there and be the center. And I think some guys who can do that are Christian Wood. I would really like him on the Dallas Mavericks. He played for the Mavericks before, and I think he would be a great fit once again. I also think you have Daniel Tice at the buyout market as well. I think the Mavericks are going to have to explore the options of Christian Wood and Daniel Tice, because when you have no center and you have no player that you can put in that position, the Mavericks are screwed. The Mavericks are screwed. And coming out of the All-Star break, the Mavericks schedule, I'm looking at it right now. They play the Pelicans coming out of the All-Star break, but then they have to play at Golden State, at the Lakers. They have to play the Bucks twice. They have to play the Kings. They have to play the Grizzlies. They have to play the Suns. I mean, these games are not gimmies. Really, no game is a gimme in the NBA, but these games for the Dallas Mavericks, they're not gimmies. And the Mavericks are currently sitting in a position where they're going to need every win possible. They're at 8th in the Western Conference at 30-26. The Mavericks need to win games. They need to get out of the play-in, because I'm sorry, if they're an 8th seed going into the playoffs, playing a red-hot Oklahoma City Thunder team that just doesn't look like they can lose, they're not going to win that playoff series. If they play Denver in the first round, they're not going to win that playoff series. It's going to be a tough road for the Dallas Mavericks, and they're going to have to find a way to get out of that play-in tournament. They're 2 games from that. They're 2 games behind the 6th-place Clippers. They're a game behind 7th, and they're only 3 games from being out of the play-in. So there's not a lot of margin for error here for the Dallas Mavericks. So they're going to really need huge offensive performances in the second half of the season from Kyrie, but we know Kyrie brings it. And Klay Thompson. I think Klay Thompson, now that Luka Doncic is out, and especially with these injuries, will be crucial for the Mavericks. Klay Thompson, he's not the same player anymore. He had an Achilles injury. He had an ACL injury in back-to-back seasons. He hasn't been the same since then. And yes, we've seen Klay for stretches, for a game, shoot hot and shoot the lights out, because Klay Thompson is one of the greatest shooters that God ever created. But Klay Thompson isn't a consistent scorer anymore. And I love Klay Thompson. I think he's a very underrated player. I think he's a great defender, and he can really light it up at points. But currently, as we're sitting right now, today, February 14th, 2025, Klay Thompson is not an elite player. He's not a number 2. He's not even a number 3, maybe. You could make the argument. Klay Thompson is not that person. So who are you going to put the ball in your hands? Are you going to give Kyrie all the load to finish the regular season? I mean, if you're Dallas, you can't do that. I mean, you're going to have to hope, if you're the Mavericks, that either a guy like Klay turns back into old Klay Thompson, Max Christie has an offensive resurgence, we see an offensive boost from Dante Exum. And I mean, it's possible. I mean, all three of those things are possible. And Dante Exum, as you remember, he had a real offensive resurgence last year at a point where the Mavericks were dealing with injuries. Can he do it again? I don't know the answer to that, but the Mavericks are going to need something like that, because at the end of the day, right here, right now, Dallas is not healthy, and Dallas is in a tough position with not a lot of margin for error in that play-in tournament. And again, the Mavericks traded Luka Doncic, and I got Anthony Davis. Obviously, you know my thoughts on the trade, but the Mavericks got Anthony Davis because they wanted to win now. And you've got 2 to 3, maybe 4 years to win with Kyrie and Anthony Davis at the helm. You have to take advantage of every year possible, because if you don't win a title and the Lakers just get one, it will be the worst trade in NBA history. And I'm sorry. I mean, I've said this before and I'll say it again. This will be the worst trade in NBA history if the Mavericks don't win a title and the Lakers just win one with Luka Doncic in the next 10 to 15 years. So the Mavericks got to win. They've got to find a way to get healthy. And I know Caleb Martin, when he gets back in the lineup, who they traded for Quentin Grimes, will help. I mean, people will help, but the question is, who is going to help Kyrie on the offensive end now with Anthony Davis being injured? That's basically what I'm trying to ask here, because I just can't see someone be that number 2 while Anthony Davis is out of the lineup. I don't. I mean, PJ Washington, he's a good number 3, number 4, but can he really burst out offensively? Can he create his own shot? I don't think so. So it's just, there's not a lot of options for Dallas here. And that's why Luka Doncic was such a perfect fit next to Kyrie Irving, because Kyrie was the perfect fit next to Luka Doncic, because Kyrie really provided that scoring boost to Luka when teams were heavily targeting a guy like Luka Doncic. Kyrie was there to let off some of the load on Luka. Now, Kyrie, in the same situation, doesn't have that help of Luka Doncic when he has the ball. He's going to have to rely on inconsistent offensive players. And trust me, I really like the Dallas Mavericks roster, but the problem is they don't have a second scorer other than Kyrie Irving right now who can bring it every single game. And if I get proved wrong, if Klay Thompson has a resurgence, Max Christie all of a sudden becomes explosive on the offense, PJ Washington does some things, or Dante Exum all of a sudden can consistently knock down 3-pointers, okay, I'm wrong. But for right now, the way I'm evaluating this Mavericks roster, it is going to be a rough second half of the season unless they get healthy and healthy fast. And there will be a lot of questions in this offseason. I mean, there's been protests. There's been people who have said, fire Nico. There's been people who said fire Nico in Mavericks games and have gotten ejected for just saying that. I mean, the tension is high in the Lone Star City right now. The Dallas Mavericks are under the most pressure to win an NBA title. I mean, it's clear and obvious. I mean, you gave up your future to win now. The Mavericks are under the most pressure to win a title, and they don't have a lot of margin for error. So I am very concerned with the future of the Dallas Mavericks. And don't get me wrong. Yes, they have a roster to contend at this conference for the next 2 to 3 years. But again, you traded for one of the most fragile players in the league in Anthony Davis. How can you expect him to stay healthy? I mean, literally, the first game back, Anthony Davis gets hurt. The first game you traded for him, he gets hurt. That's the risk of trading someone who you think is non-conditioned and you think is not durable for the least durable player in the NBA, maybe behind Joel Embiid, because Joel Embiid's been absolutely ridiculous not being healthy and not being in the lineup. And we'll talk about the 76ers another day. But the point is, Dallas needs someone else. They need to get a big man, and they better hope someone else steps up. And that's my thoughts on the Dallas Mavericks. But let's go on to another team in the Western Conference. All we're doing is talking about the Western Conference today. And we're going to talk about Kevin Durant because I find this topic very interesting because, of course, the Suns, after Bradley Beal could not be traded in any 3, 4, 5 team trade in order to acquire Jimmy Butler, the Suns were seriously considering trading Kevin Durant. Yes, they were shopping Kevin Durant. There were reports and major reports, and there has been confirmation on this, that there was a 3-way trade proposed where Kevin Durant will go back to the Golden State Warriors, Jonathan Kuminga and Jimmy Butler will go to the Suns, and Andrew Wiggins, Schroeder, Kyle Anderson, the package they would have gotten for Jimmy Butler in the first place, will go to the Miami Heat. That was the proposed 3-team trade. But then Kevin Durant goes out and says, I don't want to be part of the Golden State Warriors. And then the Miami Heat try to get involved with the Kevin Durant negotiations, but the Heat only want to give up Jimmy Butler and Josh Richardson and a first-round pick. They don't want to give up that much for Kevin Durant. So the Phoenix Suns say no. So the Phoenix Suns did not end up trading Kevin Durant. But the fact that Kevin Durant's name was out there, the fact that Kevin Durant was being shopped by the Phoenix Suns was not liked by Durant's camp. And now there is a lot of tension in the Valley. There has been tension. You get 3 guys in Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, you expect to win. And when you even just Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, you expect to win. And the Suns, the last few years, 2023, they lost in the second round to the Denver Nuggets in 6, and they last season got swept by the Minnesota Timberwolves. So the Suns, looking at their situation, they're one of the worst situated teams for the next 10 years. They have all their money tied up to Durant, Booker, and Beal. And obviously Beal wants to be in Phoenix for some reason. Even though they don't want him, even though they regret the trade, Beal wants to stay. And he has a no-trade clause, so Beal has all the power. Devin Booker is going to be part of the Phoenix Suns. He has continuously said that. So what's the last option in order for Phoenix to get some financial flexibility for the future? Trade Kevin Durant, because Phoenix obviously in that second apron, but Kevin Durant didn't like that. And now Kevin Durant is frustrated, and now Kevin Durant may want to get moved this offseason. And there is multiple signs and multiple sources that have said that the Kevin Durant and Phoenix Suns partnership will come to an end this offseason. So my thoughts on that. Not surprised. Why would I be surprised? The Phoenix Suns are one of the worst ran organizations in the NBA right now. Matt Ishbia walks in the door, goes all in. And when I mean all in, getting Bradley Beal, giving up the house, the farm for Kevin Durant, giving up Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, guys who were core pieces on the Suns' 2021 NBA Finals team, which almost won the NBA Finals. So the Suns gave up the farm for Kevin Durant. They go out and trade Chris Paul to get Bradley Beal, knowing that he's getting paid $50 million and has a no-trade clause. And all of a sudden, the Suns are screwed because the Suns, the way they've played this season, it looks like they're going to be another first exit. In fact, the Suns are not even in the play-in tournament right now. They're 26-28. They're 2 games under 500. They are a game and a half out of the play-in tournament. And if the Suns don't even make the play-in tournament with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, how do you expect to win an NBA championship if you're Matt Ishbia, if you're James Jones? You don't have the financial flexibility to go out there and to go get anyone else. They were lucky in the first place that they ended up getting Tyus Jones in free agency. I don't know why Tyus Jones would want to sign a 1-year, $3 million contract, but the Suns got lucky with that. They ended up trading Yusuf Nurkic because they had to get him in the DeAndre Ayton deal, and he had a lot of money tied up to him. The Suns, even though Grayson Allen was decent for them, gave him a big extension knowing that there would absolutely be zero, and when I mean zero financial flexibility if you extended him. So the Suns screwed themselves over. And they had to give up a first-round pick to get off the Yusuf Nurkic contract. That's how bad it was. So the Suns have no financial flexibility, and they have to move on from Kevin Durant. They have to do whatever it takes to get off Bradley Beal. Give up one, give up two future first-round picks. Maybe should you even trade Devin Booker and just blow the whole thing up? I think Phoenix could seriously consider that because the Suns have 3 first-round picks that they got for their 1 first-round pick in a trade with the Utah Jazz. But those 3 first-round picks are low-level first-round picks. They are least favorable picks, which means the team that has the best record, that's the pick the Suns will get. So it's not 3 non-elite first round picks. So the Suns, it's not like they have these incredible first round picks to trade. The Suns may have to consider rebuilding and getting first round picks and building up the roster again because they're out of first round picks. They have nothing else to do. They went all in and they failed miserably. They failed miserably. And you've really got to come out here and question a lot of Matt Ishbia's choices because going all in, there's no going back. Giving Bradley Beal, an unproven player, someone who hasn't done a lot in the postseason, committing to him $50 million and a no trade clause. And now the Suns are screwed. And I get it, Phoenix. You wanted a farm for Kevin Durant because you gave up a farm. And you have to do what you got to do. And you're going to have to try to get everything possible to get from Kevin Durant. You're going to have to get at least 3 first-round picks. It's not even about the players for the Phoenix Suns. It's about getting as much draft capital as possible. And the way the Abram rules work, the way of aggregating contracts, it's going to be very hard for the Phoenix Suns to get rid of Kevin Durant. It's going to be hard for the Phoenix Suns to blow it up, to start over. And the Suns are in a very messed up position. And you got to put a lot of blame on Matt Ishbia. But then there comes the question. Is Kevin Durant a true championship leader? And I'm not saying true championship number 1, because yes, Kevin Durant's number 1. A true leader of a championship contender team, because you look at it. He left the Oklahoma City Thunder to join the Golden State Warriors, the Golden State Warriors team that won 73 games, and they ended up winning 2 titles. Then, because not a lot of people were saying, oh, Kevin Durant can't do it by himself. Kevin Durant can't do it as the clear defined number 1 player. He goes to Brooklyn. He teams up with Kyrie Irving. He teams up with James Harden. Probably a toenail away from winning an NBA championship with his foot on the line in the 2021 Eastern Conference Semis Game 7 at home against the Milwaukee Bucks. But still, at the end of the day, his foot was on the line. The Nets got eliminated, and they didn't win the NBA championship. And that Big 3 ended up being a disaster. And the Nets have now turned into a real rebuilding phase. And now you go to Phoenix, start another Big 3 with Devin Booker and now Bradley Beal, and you can't even get out of the second round. You're not even in the play-in tournament right now. There's a lot of questions surrounding if Kevin Durant can do it by himself. There are. Kevin Durant leading a team, those questions have not been answered. And yes, he's a 2-time champion. He's a certified first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest to ever do it. But Kevin Durant has never led a team to an NBA championship. When you go back, you look at legacies. You look at the players you think of when you think of people that have defined the era. If Kevin Durant won a championship with the Brooklyn Nets in 2021, he would absolutely be in that conversation with LeBron James and Stephen Curry as the 2 players that defined this era of basketball. But instead, he's not. He's in the tier below. So when we think of, okay, let's think of the 90s. We think of Hakeem and Michael Jordan. When you think of the 80s, obviously, Magic and Larry Bird. When you think of the 2000s, you think of Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal. But when you think of the 2010s, early 2020s, you think of LeBron and Steph. You don't think of Kevin Durant. You don't. And there's a reason why. And can Kevin Durant do it? He's running out of time. He has 1 year left on his contract after this. I don't know where he would want to go. He has expressed interest in Miami. But other than that, I don't know really what team could swing at him. Maybe the Timberwolves go out and take a swing. But to me, it's really up for grabs what team gets Kevin Durant. And can Kevin Durant really be a game changer for that organization? If you go all in and get Kevin Durant, can he be that game changer? Can he lead that team to an NBA title? So far, the answer in his whole career has been no. He joined a team that won a title already with the Warriors. He hasn't joined a team that didn't win the title, a team that wasn't relatively that great already and won a title with that. LeBron, when he joined the Miami Heat, yes, they had Dwayne Wade, but they weren't this super team already that won 73 games. I mean, the Heat were missing the playoffs with Dwayne Wade at the helm. He joined a team that wasn't that great, elevated them, and won the title. Kevin Durant joined a team that already won the championship. That's the difference. And I know people are going to argue, okay, what's the difference between the Kevin Durant move and the LeBron James going to South Beach and taking his talents to South Beach? There is a difference because Kevin Durant joined a team that was historic. LeBron joined a team that didn't even make the playoffs the year, or no, made the playoffs but lost in the first round the year prior. That's the difference. So there's a lot of questions about Kevin Durant. And Phoenix, I don't know how they're going to get out of this mess, but they're going to have to figure out a way to get as much assets from Kevin Durant as possible because Bradley Beal, you might be stuck with him. And if you really want to blow it up, maybe think about trading Devin Booker and trying to get as much as you possibly can because there's really no other answers for the Phoenix Suns, and that's why they're even exploring the option of trading Kevin Durant in the first place. But let's go on to a quick little 5-minute discussion here about Brandon Ingram because Brandon Ingram hasn't really been talked about that much. I think this would have been more of a big deal if it was a different trade deadline, but because of what this trade deadline has become, what this trade deadline has turned out to be with De'Aaron Fox, Jimmy Butler, and of course Luka and Anthony Davis, as we've discussed already to start this show. Brandon Ingram, in a quiet trade, goes to the Toronto Raptors for Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, and a first-round pick. And Brandon Ingram was on an expiring contract, but the Toronto Raptors and Brandon Ingram agreed to a 3-year, $120 million extension. Brandon Ingram, if you don't remember, was an all-star for the New Orleans Pelicans. He was a very good and very elite level player for the Pelicans. Now you look at the roster surrounding him with Toronto. You've got some nice young pieces there that a little bit younger than his timeline, but sort of fit that timeline. Emmanuel Quickley, R.J. Barrett, Scotty Barnes, and the centers, obviously Jakob Poeltl, not really an intriguing young prospect. But those three guys with Brandon Ingram, that's a nice young core for the Toronto Raptors. But the Raptors decide and go ahead and give Brandon Ingram a lot of money. They commit $40 million a year for Brandon Ingram. And the Raptors, they wanted a dynamic option next to Scotty Barnes. That was a priority for Masai Ujiri in the front office. And Brandon Ingram's a very good player, don't get me wrong. He's one of the only 6 players to average 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists in each of the last 4 seasons. He is really similar to DeMar DeRozan, where he doesn't really shoot a lot of three-pointers. He shoots a lot of mid-range shots, and he can create his own shot. And that's something that the Raptors aren't good at. And I think Brandon Ingram being there, having a guy who can create their own shot, I mean, it's going to help. But Brandon Ingram has had some struggles in the last few years. And to me, it's just a big commitment to someone who's getting to give him $40 million a year. If I was Toronto, I would have let him test the free agent market, see what other teams out there were offering, and then after that, okay, if we need to give him $40 million and we really think he's the guy, we'll give him $40 million if that's what other teams are offering. But giving $40 million right now to a guy who's really struggled in the past few seasons, a guy who's really not been healthy and not been consistent. He's been in and out of the lineup. Committing that much money to Brandon Ingram is a lot. And I question the move from the Toronto Raptors, and I don't like it at all. And do I think the Raptors should have slowed down the rebuild instead of accelerating it? Probably, but they want to accelerate it because Masai Ujiri wants to win, and he's a great GM, and that's a great organization, Toronto. And they just won an NBA championship 6 years ago. But at the end of the day, committing that much money to Brandon Ingram without knowing his health, without knowing what other teams would offer him, it just seems like a lot to me. And the Raptors think that he will provide the same level of play as DeMar DeRozan did. That's what I've heard from Raptors sources. That's what I've heard from around the league. And I think Ingram has the same skill set as DeMar DeRozan. He's comfortable in that Raptors system. And I think Darko Rajakovic has done a decent job with the Raptors. He's trying to set his own culture there. But the Raptors have been inconsistent. They've been up and down. Quickly, Barrett, Barnes have all been in and out of the lineup. And I do think they have a nice young team. And I really liked the trades that they made last season and getting Quickly and RJ Barrett for OG Anunoby. I thought that was a lot to give up for the New York Knicks. I really like that. And I think even though that the Pascal Siakam trade wasn't as good as it should have been for the Raptors, getting Bruce Brown, who we thought was a high-level player after winning a championship with Denver, then you end up trading him to get Brandon Ingram. You get Brandon Ingram, Quickly, Barrett, and 3-4 first-round picks. I don't know the exact number, if I'm not mistaken, from these trades, and it's not that bad of a haul for Toronto. Now, the question is, can these four guys stay healthy, be on the court, and develop, and try to make a run at the play-in tournament next season? Because the Raptors right now, they're still 7.5 games out of the 10th spot. They're a long way to there's still a long way to go. Actually, they're 5.5 games. Excuse me. I was looking at the team below them in the Charlotte Hornets. They're 5.5 games. It's still, even though that's less than 7.5, it's still a long way to go to get to that play-in tournament. So I think this year's a scratch. But the Raptors, to me, I would have waited. I would have saw what Brandon Ingram would have gotten in the market, and I would have tested that out. But I think the Raptors are moving in the right direction. The question is, when they get their lottery pick this year, will they go out and try to get a big man like Mulch from Duke? I'm just throwing someone out there. I think he would be a good fit with that Toronto team. But Toronto needs to get a big man, and they need these four guys, Quickly, Barrett, Barnes, and Brandon Ingram, to be healthy. And I think it's a decent core, and I think making a couple of more moves and maybe potentially making a playoff push next season wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. And I like the direction of the Raptors team. I'm not saying that the Raptors haven't done anything bad. Like, I don't mind the trade. All I'm saying is probably should have waited and saw what Brandon Ingram was really worth before committing $40 million a year to a guy who struggled and been in and out of the lineup the past few years. That's all I'm saying. But the Raptors, they're doing what they're doing, and I have no problem with it. Let's go to the buyout market to end the show today, because the buyout market is one of the most interesting times in the NBA, right after the trade deadline, for players who get moved around, players who are not needed on teams get cut, and teams sign other guys. So there have been 3 pretty decent signings in the buyout market. We already talked about Alex Len going to the Los Angeles Lakers, but let's talk about Ben Simmons, because Ben Simmons was bought out by the Brooklyn Nets because he was on an expiring contract. The Brooklyn Nets had enough cap space to take on the rest of his dead cap for the rest of the season, and he now goes and signs with the Los Angeles Clippers. And I think it's a good move for Ben Simmons. I really like Ben Simmons trying to revive his career back, because I think Ben Simmons is a very valuable player. And obviously what happened in 2021 happened in 2021, and you got to move on from that. It is what it is. But Ben Simmons is one of the most elite passers in this game. He is one of the only point guards who have the size, have the physicality of his stature. He's one of the only guards in this league who is a great defender. The problem is he has a lot of health issues. He's scared to shoot the ball, and he is very inconsistent on the court. But I think Ben Simmons, we saw it in Philadelphia. I mean, this is an all-star guy. Last night, they played the Jazz, the Clippers, in his debut. He put up 12 points. I mean, Ben Simmons didn't have a bad game. I mean, he put up more than Bogdanovich, who the Clippers traded for Terrence Mann and Bones Highland. So if Ben Simmons can really find his role on a team like the Clippers, who are a gritty team, they are a defensive-first team, and I think a guy like Jeff Van Gundy, a hard-nosed coach, the lead assistant for the Clippers under Tyronn Lue, can put Ben Simmons under his wing and just tell him to go out, play hard, do what you do best, because Ben Simmons, he can be the primary backup point guard. We don't need Ben Simmons to be a scorer, even though we've seen Ben Simmons score and attack the rim at an elite level before. The Clippers don't need Ben Simmons to be an elite scorer. They need him to be a defender and be a passer and someone who can distribute and set up guys like James Harden, set up Kawhi Leonard, set up a elite player in Norman Powell, and go from there. And I think it's a decent place for Ben Simmons to really settle down and to hopefully find a footing in. And we'll see how Ben Simmons progresses. But I did like the signing of Ben Simmons to the Clippers. I don't really mind that one. And I'm happy he gets a new opportunity because I think every NBA player really deserves an opportunity. I do. And I think Ben Simmons should get that opportunity to revive his career. Obviously, the contract ended up being the contract with the Brooklyn Nets because Philly gave him the long-term money, and then they traded him for James Harden. It is what it is. And now they're teammates. But now that contract's up. He gets a smaller deal. He gets a new opportunity to revive his career, and we'll see where he goes from here. But I'm really happy he gets this opportunity. Now, Torrey Craig, who was with the Chicago Bulls, got waived by Chicago and signs with the Boston Celtics. And I told you at the trade deadline special, the Celtics made a move where they traded Jaden Springer. And it was an interesting move, but it did end up saving the Boston Celtics nearly $22 million in luxury tax. And I was like, watch out for Boston in the buyout market now. And what did they do? They end up getting Torrey Craig. Well, Torrey Craig has been a solid role player off the bench for Chicago this season, even though nobody talks about Chicago because they're young and just not really an enjoyable basketball team. He averaged 7 points per game. He can consistently knock down shots. He's not a bad shooter overall for Chicago this season. And in fact, I've been quite impressed at his three-point shooting this season. He shot over 40% from the three. And yesterday in his debut against the San Antonio Spurs, he had 6 points and hit 2 threes in 9 minutes. So Torrey Craig is someone who can play Joe Mazzulla ball essentially for the Boston Celtics. Go out there, knock down a couple of threes. I mean, it's exactly what the Celtics offense is. So I think he will fit there. But I do like it because Boston, other than Pritchard and Hauser, you really didn't have another go-to guy off the bench that you could rely on to score the ball. And depth is really important, especially in long playoff runs. You need more than 7 rotational pieces. You need more than 8 rotational pieces. Well, if you're counting Al Horford coming off the bench. But obviously the Celtics have not really been healthy. And Drew Holiday, Porzingis, Al Horford, they're really in and out of the lineup. So you're going to need guys like Pritchard, Hauser to step up, and you're going to need some guys off the bench to really excel and to help the Celtics defend their NBA title. And I think Torrey Craig can do that. And he can come out there and be the 9th man and fill out the Boston Celtics 9-man rotation when they're fully healthy. So I do like the signing. He works perfectly under Joe Mazzulla's system. And let's see if he can continue shooting the 3 ball just as good as he did with Chicago and throughout the rest of his career. Now, the last signing I want to get into is Markelle Fultz, because Markelle Fultz, after having sort of a career revive with the Orlando Magic the past few years and playing decent basketball, he ended up being the starting point guard for the Orlando Magic. The Magic decided not to retain him this offseason, and nobody wanted him, and he ended up becoming a free agent, and nobody ended up picking him up. But Markelle Fultz now, that it's the buyout market, the Sacramento Kings ended up wanting him. And the move for the Sacramento Kings, I do like that move for the Kings because the Kings really do need a point guard, especially losing a guy like De'Aaron Fox. Now, I know Zach LaVine, Malik Monk and DeMar will be doing a lot of the primary ball handling, but you do need a backup point guard. You do need a guy off the bench. You can't just have one primary ball handler in Malik Monk. You need someone else, and I think Markelle Fultz can provide that. And obviously not panning out to be as the number 1 pick in 2017, but with Orlando, he did some decent things. I mean, he wasn't that terrible in Orlando. He averaged 14 points just 2 seasons ago. He averaged 8 last season. He doesn't really shoot the ball that well, but he's good at attacking the basket. He's a very underrated defender. And again, I like the career revives from Markelle Fultz and Ben Simmons. I really do. And I think an opportunity to come off the bench, do what Markelle Fultz does best on a team that's really needing a defensive spark in the Kings, who are sitting in the Western Conference in that play-in tournament range. I think that'll help them, especially after deciding to give up De'Aaron Fox. The Kings' defense, again, notably not good. So I think Doug Christie having an option like Markelle Fultz to come out there, provide great defense for 5 to 8 minute stints and go back on the bench, I think that's exactly what the Sacramento Kings needed. And again, there's no pressure for Markelle Fultz to score, just like there's no pressure for Ben Simmons to score with the Clippers. Just go out there, do your role, be a good defender, facilitate, and just help our team set up for baskets. That's what these two players, Fultz and Simmons, need to do with their new respective Western Conference teams. That's it. And so, to me, there's not a lot of pressure for Simmons or Fultz, and I think they're both going to thrive in the roles. That's why, just like the Ben Simmons signing, I also like this signing for the Sacramento Kings, and I like this fit for Markelle Fultz, and I'm glad he's back in the league, and he should be in the league. Someone who averages 8 points and can start on a consistent basis and stay on the court, he should be in the NBA. That's why I was surprised no team picked him up in the offseason, but I'm glad he's back with a team that can really use Fultz. Now, those are really the notable buyout signings now, but of course, there's other buyout market players that could potentially be on the in the market. Of course, Mo Bamba is a free agent. He got traded and was waived by the Utah Jazz. He could be used as a centerpiece. Bones Highland, who got waived from the Atlanta Hawks, was in that trade with Terrence Mann for Bogdanovich, as we mentioned earlier. Reggie Jackson, someone who has been a veteran for a long time in this league, not really putting up great numbers with Philadelphia, but you've seen him be a crucial piece on a championship team, and he was with the Denver Nuggets. He was great with the Denver Nuggets, and he had really a revive of his career with the Nuggets, so hope maybe he can do that with another team. There's Josh Richardson, really been injured the past few years. He was with the Heat. He got traded and cut. He can provide some defensive spark. You have Jaden Springer, who the Rockets ended up waiving. I was surprised the Rockets ended up waiving him, but I feel like if Jaden Springer gets a good opportunity with a team, I think he can thrive. I just don't think Jaden Springer has been provided that opportunity. And Daniel Tice, who got traded with the Thunder and then ended up getting cut there, I was a little surprised. I thought the Thunder might have kept Daniel Tice to come off the bench or just be an emergency third-string center, but they ended up waiving him, which to me was a little surprising. But Daniel Tice, he could be used, but the sources have said that Daniel Tice might be going to Europe, and then Christian Wood will clear waivers this Thursday. If Christian Wood can get healthy, we've seen what he's done in the past with the Rockets and the Detroit Pistons. So there's some good players out there. Other players to look out for include Marvin Bagley with the Grizzlies, Bojan Bogdanovich with the Brooklyn Nets, Patty Mills with the Clippers, Seth Curry with the Hornets, Monte Morris with the Suns, PJ Tucker with the Raptors, DeLon Wright with the Knicks, and Cody Zeller from the Rockets. So that's the buyout market landscape right now. Obviously, things will continue to change. Teams will continue to fill out holes and fill out needs throughout this All-Star break because it is the perfect time to do it. So we will continue to look out for the buyout market. But for right now, it's going to be a little bit of a shorter episode today because there's really not that much to discuss, not really major urgent news after the trade deadline, but thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope everyone enjoys All-Star Weekend, and I hope it's actually good this year. If not, I'll have to go on a rant next Friday. But enjoy it. Hopefully the new format's better, and enjoy your week, and we will see you next Friday for another incredible episode. This has been the Take Your Shot podcast. Remember, follow, leave a like, subscribe on YouTube. It means a lot to me. I really enjoy you guys' support, and we will see you next week.